This is the Business of Apps podcast, bringing you actionable insights from the leaders of the global app industry and the world's fastest growing apps. You can find more app news, data and analysis over at businessofapps.com.
Welcome to the Business of Apps podcast. On this show, we invite app industry professionals to cover various topics. We promise to do our best to keep it both insightful but brief. In this episode, we have Lisa Pickett, Digital Product and Marketing Specialist. Lisa, welcome to the Business of Apps podcast.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Great. It's great to see you. Thank you for coming. All right. Remember your first day in the office at your first job. Now, switch mentally to today. Think about how your work on a project looks like now. What's the difference? Why do you feel way more confident now? It's your experience. The body of knowledge in your brain allows you to be sure about your next move and avoid anxiety. In today's episode, I have Lisa to tell you about her 5-point approach to work on a project. She has distilled from her more than a decade experience in digital marketing to achieve more while spending less. But first, Lisa, before we begin covering your approach in building a world-class mobile product, let's talk about you. What is your background?
Sure. So as you've mentioned, I've spent over a decade now working across digital marketing and products. So I started out at AKQA, which is a kind of digital innovation agency, where I was working on Nike Training Club. So primarily on lots of the Nike businesses. So back in 2013, it was one of the first fitness apps on the market. So really helped kind of create that industry and kind of define the sector, which was great. And my time at AKQA was just over 5 years, and I worked across a variety of digital products, including a foundation finder for Maybelline, using kind of machine learning to suggest the right shade for users. And also actually one of the first skills, Alexa skills, which was used during the Echo launch in the UK. It was a skill with Jamie Oliver. So done quite a lot of digital products, but then also kind of pure play marketing, product launches for various Nike products. I then switched over to brand side and worked at SoulCycle, which is a spin studio kind of founded in the US. And I helped launch their UK business, setting up their local marketing expertise across their international markets. So which was the UK and Canada when I was there. And then more recently, I was at Deliciella, where I was head of app since the start of last year. And I think during this time, which actually really helped inform the presentation, but I led a kind of complete product overhaul, everything from even the name of the app. So it's called Feel Better by Deliciella. Also included a complete rebrand, brand design, UX, UI, content strategy, monetization, kind of the whole thing. And it was a really great experience, learned a lot, worked with some amazing people. And so, yeah, that kind of, I guess, brings us up to today.
Great. Out of curiosity, did Nike influence you personally back in 2013? Did you use their products?
I've always been a bit of a fitness freak.
Nice.
I have always, and I think that's also informed a lot of the companies I've worked with. I've been really lucky to work with a lot of brands that I have kind of personal passion for. Like I'm a massive spin fan, which was great working at SoulCycle, and yeah, very much interested in the kind of lifestyle wellness industries.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great mix when you're actually enjoy the products you're marketing because this is your passion. Yeah, that's the best way to go about your work. That's great.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, your company's name does stand out the rest I've heard of this show before. Please tell us about your company, Deliciously Ela, and kind of the story of the name.
So Deliciously Ela was founded a little over 10 years ago now by Ella Mills. So she back in, it was 2012, she had a kind of some kind of personal illnesses, and she really wasn't that well, and basically looked to her diet to try and address the issues because all the drugs that she was taking weren't working. And so if you cast your mind back 10 years ago, like veganism really wasn't mainstream at all. And so she just created a blog where she just wrote the recipes up that she was trialing, and basically ended up curing herself through her diet, through kind of unrefined foods, whole foods, plant-based foods, and kind of led to a social media account and then a cookbook deal. And then she met her now husband, Matthew Mills, and they kind of formalized a business. And now it's, there's everything from food products, so like oat bars, cereals. There's a restaurant in London called Plants. There's a podcast, and there's the app, which I've now left Liciella, but I was head of app there. So that app is a subscription app. So as you can maybe guess, they had lots of recipes, or they have lots of recipes on the app, but it's also now much more of a holistic health tool. So yes, it has the plant-based recipes, but also yoga and exercise classes and mindfulness practices and sleep. So it really is your kind of one-stop shop, your ultimate wellness tool to help people find ways to feel better. And that was the kind of inspiration from the name as well.
Oh, I didn't know, obviously didn't know the story of the app's name and like the whole brand. It's very touching story. And I gotta tell you, listening to a bunch of guests on the show throughout the years, the best the best story behind the app is always when there was a specific need for somebody who tried to solve the problem. It may be something trivial, not that complicated, or pretty hard and complicated stuff for somebody to, on a personal level, like you're just describing. And it's always great when that person managed to launch the product and the app is being set up by, personal input throughout the iterations. And it really feeds its growth because it comes from the heart, so to speak.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's also been true in like the kind of responses that we've got from the app and of users who have found like kind of life-changing transformations as a result. So that's incredibly inspiring.
That's great. Now, this March in London, as one of the Promotion Summit London event speakers, you laid out the first 5-point approach to achieving more with less. So I would like to introduce this story, this approach to our audience. Let's start with the first point: get familiar with failure. Honestly, to me, it doesn't sound like a first point from somebody's approach to marketing. Why failure?
Yeah, I think I put that first point to be kind of deliberately provocative, basically to capture people's attention from the start, but bear with me. So what I really mean with this point is you're not going to have all the answers. Like no one I know has a working crystal ball, and we can't predict the future. So I think the sooner we can kind of get over ourselves and realize that we're not going to have the answers the whole time, the sooner we can kind of get out our own way. And it's actually a much quicker route to finding out where we need to be. So I think it's more about not necessarily failure, but looking at everything as a learning opportunity. So yeah, that's a kind of the proper framing of this. And I think once you embrace this, it can actually be quite liberating and empowering. And working in digital products and apps is actually really great because the feedback loop times are pretty quick if you compare it to kind of traditional media where you put an ad out and you have to wait like weeks/months to see if it worked. You can pretty much tell within a few days if what you've done has worked. And also digital is an incredibly flexible platform. So as long as you kind of go into each initiative knowing what you want to test, you can really put some parameters up to make sure that you're not going to kind of hamper anything. Like, you're not going to impact your user base if you go in with that in mind. And so that's really what I mean by this point. I think failure is having a bit of a kind of moment. I think that the likes of Matthew Syed, Elizabeth Day, Adam Grant are really encouraging us to not look at failure in the way it's more like, yes, as I said, a learning experience, experimentation, and actually really interestingly, it's something that's been adopted by a load of companies now. This Harvard professor, Stephen, and I'm going to probably pronounce his surname wrong, but Bonk, so Thomke, So he actually analysed the stock performance of companies on the S&P 500, which is the equivalent of the FTSE in the UK, and compared their share prices of those who embrace experimentation and those who didn't. And the difference between the two is actually quite remarkable in terms of the share prices being significantly higher for those who kind of do embrace that test and learn. There's a really great quote as well from Jeff Bezos around the success at Amazon is a I quote, a function of how many experiments we do per year, per month, per week, per day. So it just shows that if you kind of embrace this experimentation approach, you really are going to be able to find innovations and new ideas and just kind of move away from the competition. But during my time in the industry, I think I've found a few things that definitely help when adopting this mindset and when you're testing things out, because if you're working in apps, like your competition will probably be A/B testing things, and if they're not, they're missing a trick, and you certainly are. So I think some of the things to kind of bear in mind for this, one, always have a control. So especially if your resources are tight, yes, A might be better than B, but is A better than not doing anything at all? And you really need to make sure that you've proven that out, especially if your resources are quite light, because if it's not worth doing, then you can repurpose those resources to something more effective. The other thing is not putting a load of your traffic through new kind of features initially. So only put, say, 10% of your traffic through each feature that you want to test, so that you don't kind of derail what might have been a really good idea, but maybe the timing was off, or there was like an unfortunate bug that wasn't spotted. And so you're not kind of compromising your entire user base. If you've redone the sign up flow, say, and you test out a new route and you put 100% of people through that and it doesn't work for whatever reason, you haven't kind of compromised the effectiveness of your tool, of your app. So it just ensures that good ideas actually get the chance to be refined, reiterated on,
Right.
And you're able to kind of continue that learning culture. So yeah, that's the first point. Basically, embrace experimentation is what I mean by that.
Yeah. Now, as you put it this way, I do see the point why it should be the first point on the list, because you can imagine app marketers, when they're at the beginning of the path of launching the app, they're trying to gather as much information as they can. They're trying to learn as much of other people's mistakes, and they do believe they have to be 100% ready, try to avoid doing any mistakes, and this may create an anxiety for them to do anything, to be honest, and be experimental. Again, check out the videos of Amazon 1996, 1997, back in the day when Jeff Bezos looked very different. Just check out, two different person, two different companies. You can see the progress. You can see the results of a lot of experimentation. You may not be the next Amazon, to be honest. That's hard to pull off. But the approach of Jeff's to business, you should adopt it. It's a really good one. Okay, moving to the next one, just ask. How does this one work?
Yeah, so this one is all about using your network, which is a resource that we all have. And if you invest in it properly throughout your career, it can actually be one of the most valuable assets that you have at your disposal. So with this point, I've actually split it into two. So the first one is actually ask your audience. So ask your audience, inviting them into the kind of the room with you whilst you kind of refine your app features and also your comms. I think gone are the days where it's a bit taboo to ask your users what they think. And every time I've done it, it's been incredibly well received. And there's two real big benefits for doing this. One, you're able to gain amazing insights from your most engaged users, or just even any kind of user. Sometimes when you work on the product day in, day out, you kind of lose sight of the features that actually people love. Exactly. So it really helps you understand what they love about your app and why do they keep on using it. So you can include that in comms, for example, or use it in testimonials. You could also try and find people who are maybe less engaged, and I'll go into this in a little bit later of how to reach them. But that can really help you shine a light on areas, say, in your retention funnel of where to focus on and improve, or maybe a feature that would help make them more engaged. So obviously insights is a really good benefit, but also it's a really effective retention tactic, because the people that you've asked, they feel that they've had a voice and a kind of an influence and a role in shaping an app or a product that they obviously care quite a lot about, and so they're more likely to use it more often and also share it with their friends and family, so they kind of act more as an ambassadors. So it's great for those two reasons, and I found that it's actually really simple just to get going. You don't need kind of expensive user testing tools. If you have them, great. But if you don't, I found it's actually quite effective, even just putting a type form or a Google form in an email, and you can incentivize it to ensure kind of people actually respond to the survey or come to the kind of focus group. But you can get some really good insights with not that much resource put against it, just to get you going. And then you could probably formalize that with, as a kind of beta testing group. Loads of companies do it, like PlayStation, Amazon, Ford. So you're in good company. So that's, first one, ask the audience. And the second one is your network. So ask your network. And I totally get it, especially when you're kind of starting out in your career. Like the idea of networking used to fill me with absolute dread. But I think also, if we stop, and I'm speaking as a Brit, like stop being so British about things and just ask for help when you don't know. I've been incredibly surprised in a good way of how generous people are with their time. So an example for this was when I was at Deliciella, when we were doing the product overhaul in terms of design. This was we needed a senior UI designer who was a freelancer, and I didn't know anyone. So went out to my network, my old colleagues, and asked them, and I was like, do you know anyone, or do you know someone who might know someone? And basically through many iterations of that, like friend of a friend of a colleague of a friend, we found this guy who helped us, called Elias, who was absolutely amazing. And we would never have found him if I hadn't just asked in the first place. And so I would just encourage you, if you're starting out in your career, and even if you're halfway through it, just to really invest in growing a really great network. And I think some tips on that are start now. Don't feel you can only start when you're, a certain degree of seniority, you've got X amount of years under your belt. Like, just start now. Go to the networking events, go and join like the industry group. So in the UK, I'm a member of the Copy Club, which is kind of a brand marketing club, and then also Growth and Company, which is growth marketeers and product people, which is great just to go to networking drinks. If you're part of like maybe a bigger corporate, go to some of the kind of employee drinks or events, just to kind of start meeting people. And I used to, when I first went to these things, I used to give myself, just say hi to one person, make one contact, and that will be a success. And you can obviously build from there. I'd also say using LinkedIn is a really powerful tool. Reach out to people that you've worked with in the past or know, comment, share your opinions. And I think one of the things to just kind of help frame this is that what's the worst that could happen? Like, they don't reply to you.
Exactly.
Okay, it's not that bad. Right. No, it really isn't any that big a deal, but they could reply to you, and then you could have an amazing contact, and you can grow from there. So I would definitely encourage people to use LinkedIn as a kind of first port of call. And then the last thing is, I think it's important to remember that to pay it forward. So community only works if you give and take. And so, if someone reaches out to you, make sure that you try and find time to, help someone out who's just starting out in their career, like help introduce and make that connection, so that it fosters a community of people in the industry.
Right. People like to be involved and be heard, and probably later on when you're implementing a new feature into product, you may directly use that insight, and that person will be, using the product knowing, this feature got here because of me. I was the one who suggested it. So this is kind of a part of belonging to the team. So it is something that people like. It's just asking, just like you were saying, they may just be busy and ignore you. That's the worst case scenario.
Right.
You're not gonna get hurt. You're not gonna get hurt for sure. So yeah. Moving on. Next up is grow smart. So what is your definition of smart growth, Lisa?
Yeah, so this one of smart growth is in this context, it's always having one eye on the future. So it's not letting, I guess, short-term priorities get in the way of long-term growth. I used to have an old boss who used to say, it's pain now or pain later, and it's just better to get it over and done with now. And she was very right, and I've kind of had that with me for at least 5 years. And so in the context of when you're a product manager or you're working on apps, like I definitely know what it's like when you've got so many kind of short-term fires that you're trying to put out, and you just need to get this feature out because the deadline was yesterday. And it is so tempting to try and do the kind of quickest, easiest, cheapest thing to get it out the door, but 9 times out of 10 that will come back and bite you. And so every time you're going into a new feature build or a piece of marketing, like think about like what will future me year time, 3 years time, 5 years time of wanted me to do in this situation. So examples being making content CMS configurable. So it's very easy just to be like, just hard code it, just get it out. But give it 3 months and that content will be old, and then you'll have to pay again if you've got an outsourced development agency to redo it. So you may as well just bite the bullet and make it CMS configurable from the get-go. Another example is making sure that features are A/B, like building in A/B testing functionality to features from the get-go as well. Kind of goes back to my first point, like making sure that you're enabling growth, you're not prohibiting it. And so you're not having to basically go and unpick the work that you've done. Another thing around growing smart is data. And obviously, I would hope this is quite obvious that data is obviously really important, but when this is especially in your like very early stage startups, and likely the team, you won't have a data scientist on your team, but it is so important to find a platform that you can access data easily, and you, who's an untrained data scientist, not a trained scientist, should I say data scientist like me, is able to look at a dashboard and get the data, the report on the KPIs that you need quickly and easily is so important, because without data, especially if you've got no resources, it's just so inefficient. You are effectively shooting in the dark. So I can't kind of emphasize enough how important data is. And there's a lot of tools and platforms you can get now that have kind of out of the box integrations with different platforms. So you don't have to kind of get development work to integrate. You can kind of get up and running pretty quickly without much technical capabilities yourself. Like Portfolio is one, even MailChimp have a load of integrations to get you up and running. So that's definitely one. It's data, it's thinking about the future and kind of making sure that you're being really effective and efficient with the resources you have right now, and not just letting short-term fires inhibit your long-term growth.
Yeah, just the one word on the data importance. Remember, very simple example. When you have a product or service which you're providing in person, people come to your store, you can know them in person as the regular customers. That's easy. You can, interact with them, get a comprehensive picture of what they want, what they're like, what they don't like about your product. Whenever you have a digital product in your store to distribute, and you have hundreds, thousands, millions of users, by definition, there's no way you can know about these people anything unless you're gathering information and using any tool in your disposal, including, I would say, AI at this point. It's a really important thing to consider, to being able to analyze and make more of the data knowledge, more of all those data points you're gathering about so many users who are using your app. Otherwise, just like you're saying, you're flying blind. That's the word. Next up on the list is sweat the small stuff. So are we talking about proverbial 80-20 ratio, right?
Yeah, it's exactly that. Pareto's principle is another word for it loosely. So for those of you who aren't familiar, and this is more of an observation versus like a rule, but typically you'll find that 80% of your profits or your successes come from 20% of your customers or users in the context of an app. And I've put this in because, especially if you've got limited resources, it's supposed to be a comforting thing that you don't need to do everything to actually impact create meaningful impact. And so finding that 20%, there's certain things you can do for that. But my point is, often, and I've definitely felt it, you kind of look at everything you need to do when you're managing a product like an app, and you're like, oh my goodness, do I focus on my CRM? Do we look at testing out the App Store profile pages? Do we build this new feature that we think will bring more people in or keep more people? And it can get really overwhelming. And so my point is, you've got limited resources, focus them on one area that you think will be able to influence the biggest change with the least amount of effort. And I think gone are the days, sadly, of like the silver bullet where you change one thing and then suddenly, like, you know, your whole kind of conversion funnel just works, and your app goes from strength to strength. And obviously there are examples of that in the world, but I think it's safe to assume that might not be you. But where I have found a lot of success is getting kind of incremental percentage points, even 0.5% across the user journey. And when you add those all up, and the proverbial look after the pennies and the pounds will take care of themselves, it really is true. Especially if you're working with a subscription app, because obviously the changes you're making from retention are compounded every month or week, or however long your subscriptions are. And so I think some tips in terms of finding that 20%, make sure you map out your entire user journey from start to finish, and kind of where people are coming in and dropping out, and add in your data where you are, what's your conversion rate from download to activation, free trial to subscription, etc., and where you want to be. And then I think it's also important to look at benchmarks, like industry benchmarks, like just to make sure that your KPIs are actually realistic. Like if you've got, aiming for a 90% app store to download rate, then you're probably not going to reach that. And so you should make sure that your KPIs are realistic. And I think that's probably the case of making sure when you create your KPIs, check out industry benchmarks more so. But then the other point is, look at the resources you have available to you and look at the areas where you need to focus. And then from there, you'll be able to see where you're able to create the most impact with the resources you have available. And you can create a pretty good game plan and really focus in. So you might be like, oh, our conversion rate has really dropped in the last 3 months. Like, let's just go ham on that. As opposed to, looking at all parts, say, oh, our retention is not as good as it is. Our App Store pages, we could really improve that. Oh, maybe we should do this new feature. And you're not going to move the needle if you do that if you don't have a big team. So the whole point here is focus in on one part of the user journey and really go for it. And you'll find that even those incremental changes will actually have a big impact.
Yeah, focus is the key, and incremental growth has been discussed so many times, like for the last several years. When the market is so big and pretty saturated at this point, you have to work out those 0.5, 0.3 numbers to make the whole app project moving forward and grow on this landscape.
Yeah, exactly.
Finally, Swot Up, what this one is about.
Yeah, so this one is about, a lot of the time you won't have control of the resources that you have available to you. So you most likely won't have a direct control on the budget that you've been given or the team you're working with. But what you do have direct control over is yourself as a resource. And so if you can make yourself as valuable as possible, then that is really going to help you personally in your career and your projects and your team. And so this point is basically, how do I become more valuable to the team and to the project? So things like, be a super user. So if you're not opening your app every single day, like, why should anyone else? And you're really missing out on like really great insights to what super users use your app for. And so you can really understand like the pain points and where, you can really kind of, enhance and leverage those insights to further improve the product. Also download all of your competitors' apps and be a super user on theirs as well, because your competitors are marketing to your audience, and likely they'll probably have a few of those downloaded on their phone as well. And so you'll be being compared against them. And so you need to make sure you're keeping up with the competition. And it's a really, really great source of inspiration as well. So those are two things in terms of apps. And then also make yourself, I guess, upskill yourself in the wider context, like not just apps, but kind of, I guess, adjacent industries. Like read the books, go to the conferences, listen to the podcasts, and just make yourself, I guess, we never know where like our next idea or inspiration comes from. And I think as long as you always stay curious, you can really help give yourself a kind of head start, be on the front foot. And there's a few I listed out. I think Lenny's newsletter is really great, especially if you're working in digital products. But then, Nudge and the Elements of Choice are really great books from a kind of UX perspective and fascinating. Think Again by Adam Grant, an amazing book, which kind of talks about how embracing what we don't know and how it can help us kind of learn more effectively. But yeah, be more curious about your app, your competition, and just the wider world that we live in. So that's the last point.
Yeah, it is especially true because we're living in post-COVID times where the traditional office is not a passé, it's still here in some capacity, but we're working more and more as remote teams, and discipline, schedule, work, like your roadmap for yourself as the owner, as the entrepreneur, is really important to make your app projects to work and do grow over time. That's just crucial.
And also being able to look across different industries for sources of inspiration or what they're doing really well. Like don't just limit it to like your fitness or food. Be as lateral as possible.
Lisa, being in digital marketing space for more than a decade, what would you really like to change about digital marketing?
So this is a tough question because I really do like it. I think it would be to be more inclusive or accessible, especially for people who, like myself, actually didn't have any formal kind of digital marketing training. Like, I mean, back when I was at university, there weren't such a thing as mobile apps, which definitely shows my age. But I think, having more kind of resources available to show people that actually it is an accessible industry to work in. It's a fascinating industry to work in. It's a really impactful industry to work in. It impacts people's lives. Like most people now have a smartphone, and so they're interacting with it on a daily basis. I think having more kind of accessibility would be great. I think that would be the main thing, but I do really love it.
Got you. All right, we are finished with the first part of the show. We're transitioning to the second one, which is smaller, quicker, and basically I'm just using this, taking this chance to paint a quick picture of my guest for the benefit of our listeners so they can know them a little bit better. Here we go. Question number one, what smartphone do you have now? Are you one of those people who just stick on one, one camp all the time, or switching between these two?
Oh, this is where I'm an iPhone user, and I have been ever since like 2010. But I've got an iPhone 11 at the moment. I need an upgrade. I definitely need an upgrade. But yeah, iOS through and through. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Before these notions, iOS and Android ever existed, first mobile phones, now we call them featured phone. They used to be flip phones. So what was the first mobile phone you could put in your pocket?
So this one was an Alcatel, and it had an aerial. It was that old school, and it was a phone that I shared with my sister because we used to get the train to school, and the train was invariably late, so we had to use to call our mum. But yeah, it was an Alcatel with an aerial. That's all I can remember. It was very, very basic, but incredibly exciting as an 11-year-old.
Of course, yeah, you bet. Now, right now, present time. I imagine you left your home, and for whatever reason you left your smartphone at home. What would be the most missing feature for you when you're out?
I actually think now it's very kind of functional. Because I usually just go with my phone, so I wouldn't even have a wallet to pay with because I use Apple Pay for everything. And also I'd feel a bit lost without Google Maps, which is actually a bad skill to have lost. So yeah, not any kind of necessarily communication, but definitely payment and maps would be a real issue for me. And I should probably say also WhatsApp, because then I could obviously keep in contact. So those, am I allowed to have three?
Oh, these are great three. It's very, I would say, functional. Like, I still remember this overall observation. Like, what are the top functions, top features of apps where all people, in any country have like on the top of the list: navigation, communication, e-commerce, social networking, I guess. So Google Maps, WhatsApp, and the payment, that's just right up on that list. So yeah, this is very
Tick the box, didn't I?
essential for sure. All right. Looking at your iPhone, probably not, specifically your 11th model, but just in general on an iPhone as the platform. What's the missing for you? Hardware, software, probably both. Like, what do you go like? Wouldn't be great if my phone can do this or that.
Oh,
Probably less. Probably not. I'm saying just for you. I'm not saying more or less. Every person has their own answer.
what in terms of what I wish my phone would do?
Yeah, like yeah.
I mean, battery life is always a thing for me, but that's probably because I've got an older phone. Yeah, or just I think I guess it gets a bit big brothery if you're kind of trying to go more personalization. It's interesting. I have worked in apps a lot, but I actually, when I'm at home, I tend to leave my phone away from me quite a lot. I'm a big believer in being present with the people who I'm with. But yeah, I mean, things like Find My iPhone and stuff like that are amazing. I think now the other parts of like daily life, and I think this is only just because we don't have the right smart home things, is like a lock, because you always like keys, wallet, phone. Well, wallet we've integrated into the phone, and I think keys have been or will become much more kind of a feature of a lot of people's kind of apps on their smartphones. Soon I think it will just, you'll literally just use your phone for everything. But yeah, that having the ability to open my flat would be great with the phone. Just means I would have something less to lose.
Right. I'm myself waiting for my home to become smart, and actually the whole idea of smart ecosystem at home actually take off, because it's been a few years where I read about new features. This is great, on the platform side, it's awesome, but still it's not widespread. Still not a lot of companies do support the hardware. So the idea is somewhere there, we can buy the bulbs from Philips to make the smart lighting. You can buy the log for your home, but this is not like, it's pretty expensive to be honest. It's not
quite mainstream as much as
mainstream yet. Yeah,
but I think I've definitely seen examples of it. So that'll be interesting when that kind of moves on to the next phase in terms of adoption.
Right. Okay, before I let you go, very, very final question. How can people get in touch with you and get more information about what you do?
I think the best way to reach me would actually just be LinkedIn. So Lisa Pickett. And yeah, definitely make the connection. As I said, what's the worst that can happen? And I promise I will reply.
Great. Lisa, thank you so much for coming on the show and spending time with us. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye. And that was Lisa Pickett, digital product and marketing specialist. To listen to more episodes, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts. Just search for Business of Apps and you will find us easily. Remember, we release episodes on Mondays, so subscribe and you'll be able to get new episodes on your smartphone, tablet, or computer as soon as we release them. And please don't forget to leave us a review or comment on iTunes. It is highly appreciated. And all episodes will also be available on businessofapps.com. Thank you for listening. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Business of Apps podcast. For more, head on over to businessofapps.com.